There's something no one tells you about Sagittarius. They are the kindest flame you'll ever feel. A warmth that asks for nothing, expects nothing, and gives everything. Until one moment, quiet, almost invisible when you cross a line you never knew existed. You won't hear a warning. You won't see it coming. But suddenly, the flame that once warmed you becomes a fire you can't touch again. Sagittarius is not just a zodiac sign. It's a sacred contract written under Jupiter where kindness is divine, but boundaries are law. And when you violate that law, you don't lose their attention. You lose access to their entire universe. In this video, I'm not just listing traits. I'm revealing 20 soul-level truths about Sagittarius, why they are so generous, loyal, and forgiving, and why the moment they feel disrespected, their energy becomes unreachable. You'll see your past here, maybe your present, maybe the very reason someone disappeared without ever explaining why. Welcome to the Sagittarius Flame, where we don't just decode the stars, we decode the contracts your soul signed before birth. Before we dive in, comment below with your birth date. If you're a Sagittarius, or tag the Sagittarius, you know who fits this description. And if this video speaks to your soul, like, share, and subscribe for more truths like this. Let's begin with reason 1, and it's something most people mistake as weakness when in truth. It's their greatest form of power. Reason 1. They forgive easily, but that's not weakness. It's Jupiter's law. They say forgiveness is rare these days. But for Sagittarius, it's almost instinctual. They forgive quickly, sometimes too quickly by the standards of others. They don't explode. They don't seek revenge. They simply release. But here's the truth most people miss. Sagittarius doesn't forgive because they're naive. They forgive because they are ruled by Jupiter, the planet of higher wisdom, spiritual expansion, and soul perspective. Where others hold grudges, Sagittarius seeks elevation. They don't want their energy tied up in old resentment. They know that holding on to poison only keeps them sick, while the one who hurt them walks free. So they choose to rise. But don't mistake this for weakness. Because while Sagittarius may forgive you in their words, they never forget you in their soul. I once knew a Sagittarius woman who was betrayed by her best friend and her partner on the same day. She didn't scream. She didn't send angry texts. She invited both of them to dinner, calmly told them she knew everything, then thanked them. They thought she had lost her mind. But what they didn't realize was that she had already released them from her story. She didn't need closure. She was the closure. 2 weeks later, she moved to another city, started a new life, and never looked back. That's the kind of forgiveness that shakes people. To the outside world, it looks graceful. But internally, it's Jupiter's law at work. Let the dead bury the dead. The path is forward. Sagittarius understands the sacred law of spiritual weight. They don't carry more than what serves their purpose. And that includes people. So yes, they forgive easily. But not because they're soft. They forgive because they refuse to be held hostage by your mistakes. They forgive to stay light, to keep walking, to keep dreaming. And once that choice is made, they don't revisit the scene. Question for you. Have you ever forgiven someone but chose never to look back again? Tell me in the comments. Your story might be someone else's mirror. Life lesson. Forgiveness is not approval. It's alchemy. It turns pain into peace and creates room for better people to walk in. Sagittarius doesn't forgive for you. They forgive to protect their flame. Reason 2. Their kindness isn't a strategy. It's a soul frequency. Some people are kind to get ahead. Some are kind to be liked. Some use kindness like currency, something they expect to cash in later, but not Sagittarius. Their kindness isn't calculated. It isn't rehearsed. It doesn't come with fine print or emotional contracts. It just is. Because for Sagittarius, kindness is not an act. It's a soul frequency they naturally emit when they feel aligned. You'll see it in small ways. The way they light up when you talk about your dreams. How they remember the things you forgot you said. How they show up when no one else does. They don't do it for applause. They do it because they feel it's the right thing, not just morally, but cosmically. But here's the danger people don't see. Sagittarius gives naturally generously until they feel you're taking. They're not keeping score, but they are tracking energy. They notice when the flow starts to feel one-sided, when your laughter feels empty, when your gratitude disappears, when your presence starts demanding instead of dancing. And they won't yell, they won't accuse you. They'll just start to dim, quietly, subtly. Suddenly the fire that once made you feel seen starts to turn cold, not out of punishment, but out of energetic truth. This connection no longer matches my vibration. I once coached a Sagittarius man who had helped a friend build a business from scratch. Late nights, free labor, emotional support. Then one day the friend said to him, "You're just always available. I figured you'd keep showing up." That sentence changed everything. The Sagittarius didn't argue. He didn't get angry. He just never answered another call again. The truth, they're not performing kindness. They are kindness. But they refuse to let that kindness be used like a doormat. Question for you. Have you ever walked away from someone who made your kindness feel like a weakness? Drop a below if that moment changed your self-worth forever. Life lesson. Kindness is divine, but boundaries are holy. Sagittarius loves from their soul, but when that love is disrespected, they protect their light before they protect your comfort. Reason 3. They don't need revenge. Karma just works faster around them. Some people plot. Some people scheme. Some spend days, months, even years thinking of how to get back at the ones who wronged them. But Sagittarius, they don't have time for that, because they know something most people don't. The universe doesn't forget. And when Sagittarius steps back, karma steps in. There's a strange pattern I've seen time and time again with Sagittarians. They get wronged deeply, used, lied to, betrayed, and instead of lashing out, they vanish. They don't curse your name. They don't post cryptic messages online. They just detach. And days, sometimes weeks later, things start to unravel for the one who hurt them. I've heard countless stories. A cheating partner loses everything. A toxic boss is suddenly fired. A fake friend is exposed in front of the very crowd they manipulated. Coincidence? Or is there something about the Sagittarius spirit that triggers divine timing? A woman from Georgia once emailed me. She had been in a 5-year relationship with a man who emotionally drained her. When she finally left, no screaming, just a handwritten letter, she blocked him and moved across the country. 3 weeks later, he got caught in a public scandal that cost him his job. She never said a word. When she told me this, her exact words were, "I didn't have to destroy him, I just removed myself, and the universe did the rest." That's the Sagittarius way. They don't believe in revenge. They believe in vibrational correction. They trust that when they step into alignment, anything out of alignment will collapse on its own. And if you wrong them, your collapse doesn't come from their hands. It comes from your own karma. Catching up. Question for you. Have you ever walked away completely and watched life handle what you couldn't? Tell me in the comments. Let's build this story together. Life lesson. When you're truly aligned, you don't need to chase justice. Justice finds its way, especially when your soul is ruled by Jupiter. Sagittarius doesn't destroy. They just step aside and let truth reveal itself. Reason 4. Their silence isn't passive. It's a final decision. Most people see silence as hesitation, as if someone is still thinking, unsure, undecided. But when it comes to Sagittarius, silence means it's already over. You just haven't realized it yet. When a Sagittarius gets quiet, it's not because they lack words. It's because they've said everything they needed to, energetically. And now they're letting the distance speak for them. See, Sagittarius is a fire sign, but not the kind that always flares. Their flame is ancient, wise, strategic. They don't always need to burn you with anger. Sometimes they burn you with absence. I once worked with a Sagittarius client named Elijah. His sister lied to him about money not once, but twice. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't confront her with accusations. He simply stopped answering. When she finally asked why, he replied with a single sentence, "I trust people once." No anger, no scene, just silence. That carried more weight than any speech ever could. That's the thing about Sagittarius. They observe before they react. They test your patterns. They see the signs long before they say a word. And when they finally stop responding, it means they're done responding to your frequency entirely. It's not ghosting, it's soul-level rejection. And they won't come back not because they hate you, but because they love their peace more. Question for you: have you ever stopped talking not to punish, but because you finally saw the truth? Comment below. Your silence may have been your most powerful decision. Life lesson: silence isn't emptiness, it's resolution. For Sagittarius, the loudest goodbyes don't need to be spoken. They're delivered through presence withdrawn. Reason 5. Their joy hides old wounds. You see the laughter, the wit, the spark that fills a room before they even speak. But what you don't see unless they let you is the pain underneath that joy. Because for Sagittarius, humor isn't just personality, it's protection. They've been burned before, by people they trusted, by systems they believed in, by promises they thought were sacred. But instead of collapsing, they transmute the pain into presence. They make jokes. They lift others up. They tell wild stories and pull you into their world so you'll never think to ask what's hurting them deep down. I remember a Sagittarius woman I met in New Orleans. She was the life of every gathering. People came to her for advice, for a laugh, for energy. No one knew she was grieving her mother in silence. No one knew she had just ended a 7-year relationship. No one knew her smile was her armor. Until one night after everyone left, she turned to me and whispered, "If I stop smiling, I might fall apart. But I'd rather be the light than drag people into my shadow." That's what makes Sagittarius so magnetic. They carry their pain like a lantern. They use it to guide, not to darken. But here's where it turns dangerous. When someone mocks that light, takes it for granted, or assumes they have no depth. That's when Sagittarius retreats. Not in sadness, but in sacred preservation. Because their joy isn't a show, it's a survival tool. And when you treat it carelessly, they stop letting you near it. Question for you: have you ever hidden your pain behind joy, not to deceive, but to survive? Tell your story below. You never know who needs to hear it today. Life lesson: the loudest laugh often echoes from the deepest canyon. Sagittarius teaches us this true strength isn't loud. It's light in the dark. Reason 6. They'll only help you once. If you've ever been in crisis, truly lost, confused, or broken, and a Sagittarius stepped in to help, you know what it feels like to be rescued by fire. They don't just help, they give all of themselves. Time, energy, money, ideas. They'll offer solutions you didn't know existed. They'll uplift you, believe in you harder than you believed in yourself. And they do it all without keeping score. But here's what people often forget: that kind of help only comes once. See, Sagittarius doesn't help for applause. They help because they feel called. because their spirit says, "This person needs me now." But if you waste that help, if you ignore the advice, reject the lifeline, or worse, take it and expect more, they disappear, not to punish, but because they know the difference between a sacred gift and a soul that refuses to grow. I once worked with a Sagittarius man named Jordan. He helped his cousin start a business, taught him how to budget, design, network, everything. 6 months later, the cousin was broke again, partying, blaming the economy, and texting Jordan for another favor. Jordan's reply: "I didn't help you to repeat the pattern. I helped you so you could end it. No anger, no lecture, just a closed door." Sagittarius believes in momentum. They offer the spark, not the fuel. If you don't run with it, they won't relight it. They're not here to carry your life for you. They're here to remind you that you were capable all along. But once that reminder is ignored, they pull back, and that kind of help never returns the same way. Question for you: have you ever given your all to someone only to realize they didn't want change, just rescue? Share it in the comments. Let someone else learn from your flame. Life lesson: help is holy, and when it's given freely, it should be honored completely. Sagittarius helps once, not because they're cruel, but because they believe in your power more than your excuses. Reason 7. They protect others more than themselves until you become the threat. If you've ever had a Sagittarius love you, really love you, then you know what it feels like to be protected by something ancient. They'll defend you when you're not in the room. They'll take your side even when you're silent. They'll fight battles for you that you didn't even know were happening. Sagittarius protects like a warrior, not because they're trying to be heroes, but because they see loyalty as sacred. When you're under their wing, you're family. And family to them isn't defined by blood. It's defined by energy, trust, and soul memory. They will speak for you, sacrifice for you, even shield you from your own self-doubt. But here's what most people miss: that same fire that protects will burn if you become the danger. I knew a Sagittarius woman, once a nurse from Detroit. Her partner was struggling with depression and career loss. She stood by him for years, until one day he crossed the line, using her loyalty as an excuse for emotional abuse. Accusations, guilt trips, manipulation. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just left a note on the kitchen table that read, "You were wounded and I protected you. But now you wound me and I protect myself." And she never returned. That's how Sagittarius loves: fiercely, protectively, but never blindly. Once you become the source of chaos they used to defend you from, they withdraw everything, not just their presence, but their protection. And the absence of a Sagittarius's shield, it's colder than any betrayal. Question for you: have you ever been someone's protector until you realized you needed to protect yourself from them? Leave a comment. Your truth could set someone else free. Life lesson: loyalty is sacred, but self-betrayal is a sin. Sagittarius will guard your name like it's theirs, until the moment you forget to guard their heart. Reason 8. Their truth cuts sharp because it's meant to heal, not please. A conversation with a Sagittarius can change your life, but only if you're ready to hear the unfiltered truth. They don't sugarcoat. They don't soften edges. They speak with fire-touched honesty, the kind that purifies, but also burns. Some call them too blunt. Others say they don't know how to be gentle. But the truth is, Sagittarius was never born to please egos. They were born to awaken souls. They don't believe in fake compliments. They won't lie to make you feel better. If your behavior is self-sabotaging, they'll tell you. If your partner is draining your light, they'll name it. If you're living below your potential, they'll call it out, raw, real, and without hesitation. I once witnessed a Sagittarius tell her best friend at brunch, "You're not stuck. You're just addicted to your own suffering." It silenced the entire table. But weeks later, that same friend messaged her, "What you said hurt. But it's the only reason I finally left him." Thank you. That's what people don't understand. Sagittarius isn't trying to hurt you. They're trying to free you. They speak like lightning because their words are charged with higher vision. They don't live in surface-level comfort. They live in soul-level clarity. If you provoke them, that truth sharpens. They'll tell you exactly what you've been avoiding, not to destroy you, but to show you what needs to die inside of you. Question for you: has someone's brutal honesty ever cracked something open in you? Was it a Sagittarius? Share your moment below the one that changed everything. Life lesson: not all truth is gentle, but the deepest truth is sacred. Sagittarius doesn't speak to please, they speak to liberate. Reason 9. They stay calm until the explosion you didn't see coming. Most of the time, Sagittarius is the peacemaker. The one who jokes to lighten the tension. The one who listens before judging. The one who says, "Let's not make this a big deal." They try, over and over. But here's what you don't see. Every time they brush something off, every time they swallow their reaction, every time they say, "It's fine," when it's not, they're storing it. Not for revenge, but because they're testing to see if it's worth their eruption. And when it finally is, run. I once spoke to a Sagittarius man who had been in a toxic work environment for 2 years. Constant disrespect, backhanded comments, undermining behavior. He said nothing. Until one day in a boardroom meeting, he calmly stood up and said, "I've watched every one of you undermine this company and each other. You've confused my patience with weakness. I'm done pretending this place is worth my fire." And he walked out, job lined up, resignation printed, soul intact. That's the danger with Sagittarius. They don't explode often, but when they do, it's clean, clear, and complete. No loose ends, no begging, no second round. Just a volcanic clarity that clears everything they've been tolerating in one breath. So if you think they're okay just because they're quiet, look again. You might be standing next to a storm that's already decided to move on. Question for you: have you ever held it in until the exact moment you said no more? Drop A in the comments if that was your moment of freedom. Life lesson: calm isn't always peace. Sometimes it's the silence before a soul declares its boundaries. When Sagittarius explodes, it's not rage, it's release. Reason 10. They'll laugh with you, but never tolerate disrespect. Sagittarius is magnetic. Their laugh is the kind that fills a room without trying. They turn sarcasm into healing, banter into bonding. They're the kind of people who can make strangers feel like old friends and pain feel like a punchline you can survive. But here's what people often get wrong. Just because they're funny doesn't mean they're fools. Just because they laugh with you doesn't mean they'll laugh at themselves. Because the moment your joke crosses into mockery, the moment your sarcasm cuts into cruelty, Sagittarius sees it. They may not react the first time. They'll measure you. They'll wonder, was that a slip, or the truth revealing itself? And if it happens again, they go cold. Not loud, not dramatic, just silent. You'll feel the shift like winter suddenly descending on summer. Because disrespect doesn't need a third strike. With Sagittarius, once is a mistake. Twice is your nature. And they don't stay where they aren't valued. I once watched a Sagittarius man stop talking mid-conversation with someone he had called a best friend for 5 years. Why? Because that friend made a public joke about a private trauma. The Sagittarius didn't explain, didn't argue. He just smiled and never responded to a single call after that day. Laughter is sacred to Sagittarius. It's how they survive, how they connect, how they rise. But when you use it to humiliate them, they take back their light and they leave. Question for you: have you ever had to cut someone off after they disguised cruelty as humor? Share your story. Someone else might need that courage today. Life lesson. Humor builds trust until it crosses into harm. Sagittarius will laugh with you until you weaponize it. Then they'll disappear and the silence will be louder than anything you said. Reason 11. They see the best in people until you show your worst. One of the purest traits of Sagittarius is their faith in human potential. They believe people can grow, that broken things can be healed, that most cruelty is just unhealed pain passed down. So they try, harder than most. To understand you uplift, you wait for the good to reveal itself. They'll stay long past the moment most would walk away. They'll defend your name when others whisper. They'll believe your apology even after the third time, because their soul is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of hope, vision, and spiritual expansion. They don't just see you for who you are, they see you for who you could be. But this is what makes it dangerous. If you keep showing them your worst, if the damage you bring becomes louder than the potential they once saw, they stop projecting possibility. They start seeing the pattern. And when that happens, something changes in them forever. They don't fight. They don't punish. They just stop making room for your shadow in their light. I once knew a Sagittarius woman who kept trying to help her brother break an addiction. She gave him a place to stay, paid his therapy, protected him from the family's judgment, until he stole from her twice. She didn't scream. She didn't throw him out violently. She left him the house and moved somewhere he didn't know. She said, "I believed in his light until it burned me." Sagittarius is not stupid. They're hopeful. And once that hope turns into survival, they choose themselves every time. Question for you. Have you ever stopped seeing someone's potential and started seeing their pattern? Tell me in the comments. It might help someone else make a hard but necessary choice. Life lesson. Seeing the best in others is a gift, but protecting your soul is a duty. Sagittarius will believe in you until you prove that you don't believe in yourself. Reason 12. They give you space but don't tolerate abuse of that freedom. Sagittarius is known for craving freedom, but what people often overlook is that they give it just as generously as they seek it. They won't text you 5 times in a row. They won't ask where you are or who you're with. They won't pressure you to perform affection on a timeline that isn't yours. Because they understand space, they honor independence. They believe love, friendship, and connection should feel like wings, not ropes. They'll celebrate your autonomy, encourage your solitude, support your distance if it's what you need to heal. But there's a fine line, and once it's crossed, they know it instantly. When that space they gave becomes a tool you use to manipulate them. When their trust in your independence becomes your excuse to disappear, deceive, or disrespect. That's when Sagittarius draws the line, not loudly, but definitively. They don't chase. They don't beg. They observe. And when the observation confirms what they feared, they cut the cord and never revisit the thread. I once heard a Sagittarius man say this after a friend kept ghosting and reappearing with excuses. I gave her space because I respected her process. But what I didn't realize was she wasn't processing anything. She was just using silence to keep me in limbo. Sagittarius isn't afraid of distance. They're afraid of dishonesty that hides behind it. They'll give you freedom once, but if you misuse it, you won't get a second offer. Question for you. Have you ever respected someone's distance only to realize they were using it to avoid responsibility? Comment below. Your story might open someone's eyes. Life lesson. Freedom is sacred, but it's not a loophole for neglect. Sagittarius grants you space as a sign of respect, not as permission to disappear. Reason 13. Their energy is magnetic but not infinite. Walk into a room where Sagittarius is truly alive and you'll feel it instantly. They don't even have to speak. Their energy is warm, uplifting, contagious. It feels like permission to be yourself, like hope in human form, like someone finally turned the lights on. People gravitate toward that fire. Because in a world of performance, Sagittarius is raw, real, and wild-hearted. But here's the cost of carrying that kind of light. People forget you need to recharge too. And Sagittarius often gives so much emotionally, spiritually, even physically, that by the time they notice their flame is dimming, it's already flickering out. They don't always complain. They won't ask you to give back. But if you take without giving, expect without asking, drain without returning, they'll vanish quietly, permanently. Not out of malice, but because they've learned the hard way that even the sun burns out if it's not respected. I knew a Sagittarius woman who carried everyone. She was the friend everyone vented to, the one who picked people up at 3 a.m., the one who never said no, until one day she did. She went off-grid for 3 months, no explanation, no apology. When she returned, she said this: "I'm not anyone's emergency contact anymore. I've been my own for too long." That's when you know a Sagittarius has reached their limit. They give you energy freely, but when it's not mutual, they don't fight. They disappear. Question for you: have you ever burned out from giving too much of yourself to others? Tell me in the comments. Your flame deserves protection too. Life lesson: magnetism is a gift, not a job. Sagittarius shares their light to uplift, not to entertain. When they go quiet, it's not rejection, it's recovery. Reason 14. They want peace, not performance. Sagittarius thrives on realness. They can smell fakeness before it even enters the room. They know when your smile is forced, when your compliment is calculated, and when your love is just theater. They may not say anything at first, because they'll give you space to show up as yourself. They'll wait, hoping the version you're playing isn't the only one that exists. But if the show goes on too long, they leave the audience, because Sagittarius doesn't have time for emotional games, for manufactured drama, for people who create chaos just to feel significant. They crave peace, not perfection peace. And peace to Sagittarius isn't about quiet, it's about energetic harmony. It's about being around people whose energy feels like a deep breath, not a performance they have to decode. They won't beg you to be real. They'll just slowly disappear into places where realness still exists. I once knew a Sagittarius man who left a long-term relationship without warning. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But he told me one thing. I realized I was in love with a version of her that only existed when people were watching. And I didn't sign up for a character. I signed up for a connection. That's the shift no one sees coming. You thought they were comfortable in the show, but they were already on their way to the exit. Question for you: have you ever felt emotionally exhausted by someone who only showed up when the spotlight was on? Let me know in the comments. Your story might help someone feel less alone. Life lesson: peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the absence of pretending. Sagittarius doesn't need everything to be perfect. They just need it to be real. Reason 15. They rebel when you try to cage them. If you want to lose a Sagittarius fast, try to control them. Try to monitor their every move. Try to make them shrink to fit your comfort. Try to schedule their fire. It won't end well, because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, planet of expansion, exploration, and wide open skies. And when you try to cage that kind of soul, they don't fight you. They outgrow you. They'll try to compromise at first. They'll give you the benefit of the doubt. They'll explain their need for space, for breath, for movement. But if you ignore that, they shift. You'll notice it in their eyes. The spark goes from curiosity to distance. Their laughter doesn't come as freely. Their body is present, but their soul is already on a different continent. They rebel not with fists, but with freedom. I once met a Sagittarius woman who left her marriage after 12 years. Everyone was shocked. They thought it was sudden. But she told me it wasn't sudden. I was dying quietly for years. I just finally listened to the voice inside me that said, "You weren't born to be tamed." That's what people miss. Sagittarius isn't asking for chaos. They're asking for truth space and trust. And when those are taken from them, they don't explode. They escape. Question for you. Have you ever stayed too long in a space that slowly killed your freedom? Tell me below. That moment you left might help someone else find their fire. Life lesson. You can't own a wildfire. You can only honor it. Sagittarius doesn't rebel because they hate you. They rebel because their soul can't breathe. Reason 16. They love to guide, not control. There's a quiet nobility in how Sagittarius loves. They don't try to change you. They don't want to own your path. They simply want to walk beside you while you become more of who you truly are. Sagittarius is the sign of the guide, the seeker, the mentor, not the master. If they offer you advice, it's never to dominate. If they correct you, it's never to belittle. Their fire is directional, not destructive. But here's what breaks them: when you take their wisdom and twist it into control. When you take their honesty and call it manipulation. When you assume their passion is about power instead of purpose. That's when Sagittarius stops speaking. Not out of defeat, but because they've realized you're not listening to understand, you're listening to resist. I once worked with a Sagittarius teacher who mentored dozens of young creatives. One student accused her of being too opinionated. The teacher replied, "I don't tell you what to do. I remind you what your soul already knows but fears becoming." That's the essence of Sagittarius love. They don't lead from ego. They lead from vision. But if that vision is rejected too many times, they step back, and their silence becomes your mirror. Question for you. Have you ever tried to guide someone with love only to be mistaken for controlling? Leave a comment. Your story might help someone reclaim their own voice. Life lesson. Sagittarius doesn't want to control your journey. They just don't want to watch you sabotage it. Reason 17. They'll protect you like kin, but cut you like a sword if betrayed. There's no halfway with Sagittarius when it comes to loyalty. If they love you, you are kin. Not just in the earthly sense, but in the soul sense. They'll defend your name, your wounds, your dreams, even when you don't believe in them yourself. They show up, not because it's convenient, but because it's coded in their spirit to protect what they love. But the other side of that flame, once betrayed, they won't just walk away. They'll remove you from their emotional universe like you never existed. Because betrayal isn't just hurtful to them, it's sacred violation. They gave you trust, the most guarded part of their fire, and once it's burned, they won't rebuild from the same place. I once knew a Sagittarius woman who helped her business partner through divorce, addiction, and bankruptcy. She shared resources, opened her home, defended his name, until she found out he was stealing from her behind the scenes. Her response? No screaming, no revenge, just this one message. You weren't just dishonest. You took cover under my protection and lit a match from inside the walls. She sold the company 2 weeks later. Never spoke his name again. That's the gravity of betrayal with Sagittarius. They don't leave scorched earth. They leave no trace at all. Question for you. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you would have defended with your life? Tell me in the comments. This is the space where healing begins. Life lesson. Sagittarius love is a fortress. But once breached, they don't repair the gate, they burn it down and build it elsewhere. Reason 18. They love solitude but not distance that's forced on them. To many, Sagittarius looks like a social creature, the life of the room, the storyteller, the spontaneous flame that lights everyone up. But what most people never see is how much they crave solitude. Not loneliness, not rejection, but sacred space to breathe, to think, to reset the fire inside. They'll take long walks alone, disappear for days to recalibrate, sit under the stars, not needing to say a word. That's their medicine. But here's the paradox. When someone they love begins pulling away, not for healing, but out of coldness, avoidance, or manipulation, Sagittarius feels it immediately, and it wounds them deeply, because they know the difference between chosen solitude and emotional exile. They'll never beg for closeness, but if they sense you're punishing them with silence, using emotional distance to control the dynamic, they won't try to bridge that space. They'll expand into it until it becomes permanent. I knew a Sagittarius man who told me this about a woman he loved. She thought I didn't notice how she withdrew, but I notice everything. I just stop reacting when it becomes clear I'm being punished for loving her freely. Sagittarius disappears, not when they're afraid, but when their freedom is turned into a weapon against them. They don't fear being alone. They fear being kept close through manipulation. Question for you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who confused silence with power? Tell me in the comments. You're not alone in that clarity. Life lesson. Solitude is where Sagittarius recharges, but emotional exile. That's when their soul packs its fire and leaves. Reason 19. They're not emotional. They're spiritual. People often mistake Sagittarius as emotionally detached. They don't cry on cue. They don't cling when things fall apart. They don't explode with sentiment in predictable ways. But that's because they're not living from the emotional body, they're living from the spiritual dimension. Their decisions aren't made from moods, they're made from meaning. If they walk away, it's not to hurt you. It's because their spirit is being redirected. If they say no, it's not rejection, it's sacred boundary. If they seem calm when they should be furious, it's because they've already processed the lesson and are already halfway into the next evolution. I once had a Sagittarius client say this after ending a 6-year friendship. I wasn't angry. I just realized I had outgrown the dynamic, and my spirit wouldn't let me stay where I was only surviving. That's what most people miss. Sagittarius isn't cold. They're cosmically aligned. They feel on a higher frequency, so they don't always perform pain the way others expect. But when they detach, it's not avoidance. It's the soul saying, "We're done here." Question for you. Have you ever left a relationship, job, or friendship not because it was awful, but because your soul simply said no more? Tell me in the comments. That's spiritual intelligence. Don't let anyone label it otherwise. Life lesson. Sagittarius doesn't act from impulse. They act from intuition. Their choices may look sudden, but in truth, they're led by something ancient. Reason 20. They leave you with a lesson, not a scar. If you've ever lost a Sagittarius, you know. They don't scream. They don't drag your name. They don't leave trails of drama or chaos behind them. They just vanish. And at first you might think it's temporary, that they'll come back, that the silence is just space. But Sagittarius doesn't leave because they're angry. They leave because a soul decision was made. And once it's made, they don't reverse it. They won't block you to provoke a reaction. They'll unblock you when they no longer care. They won't explain their departure, because to them, your actions were the explanation. What's left behind isn't noise. It's clarity. A sudden quiet echo in your life where their flame used to be. And that echo doesn't hurt because they were cruel. It hurts because they were real. The kind of real you didn't think could disappear, until it did. I once received an anonymous letter after a Sagittarius man ended a 10-year friendship. He didn't ruin me. He didn't humiliate me. He just made me face exactly who I had become and who I had failed to be for him. That's what Sagittarius does when they're pushed too far. They don't destroy. They reflect. Their exit is never about revenge. It's about truth. And the lesson they leave behind stays with you longer than any fight ever could, because they don't seek to scar you. They want to awaken you. And sometimes the greatest awakening comes from the absence of a love that should have stayed. Question for you. Have you ever learned a life-changing lesson from someone who simply left without warning? Share it in the comments. That story might help someone else understand the silence they're facing right now. Life lesson. Sagittarius doesn't need to break you. They only need to remove themselves and let you feel what life is without their flame. And once you do, you'll never mistake their kindness for weakness again. Final closing. This has been the Sagittarius Flame, where we don't just decode the zodiac, we unlock the soul behind it. If this spoke to your journey, your heart, or your pain, subscribe now. Because your Sagittarius fire is only just beginning to rise. And if you're brave enough, tell me, which of these 20 truths hit you hardest? I'll be reading every single comment. The flame never leaves you, but sometimes it needs to burn away the false before the sacred can remain. Until next time, walk wisely, burn honestly, and never apologize for being a flame.